our concussion recovery program is largely based in integrative manual therapy, which is a type of bodywork that we specialize in at Integrative Wellness and Physical Therapy, and the type of bodywork that we teach in our seminar company, Manual Therapy Seminars. And what's unique about it is that we're really looking at the different parts of the body that are affected by the head injury, by the concussion, and trying to restore health to those areas. And health can mean a number of things. It can mean making sure that things have mobility, ample circulation, ample drainage, and so on. But to give a little bit of history to it and also just an understanding of what a concussion is, we have been working with children and adults that have had head injuries for decades now. The field of integrative manual therapy, which was actually founded by my mother, Dr. Sharon Weiser, many years ago, her doctoral studies, her PhD dissertation work was actually in the field of traumatic brain injury and truly studying the efficacy of integrative manual therapy on that client population. And during that time, we did a lot of research on what a concussion is and how it affects the body. And what we discovered actually through a lot of car studies, like Volvo did a lot of research on whiplash and head injuries and things of that nature. You see this image of someone in a car and they're front-ended and you see this huge whiplash force. But when you get a head injury of that nature or a sports injury and a concussion, it's a very interesting thing that happens in the body as a result of it, which is really the obstacle to full recovery for a lot of people. So when you get that force goes into your head. And if we think about just the anatomy, you have your skull and you have your spine. And at the bottom of the spine, there's a triangular bone called the sacrum. It's right at the top of our buttocks. And inside all of that spinal column, we have our brain and our spinal cord. And the spinal cord actually attaches at the sacrum. So what happens is when we get a force to our head, that force goes into our head, into our brain and spine, and it goes all the way down the spine and it pushes the sacrum downwards. And that could just be like a millimeter or two of excursion. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of space. But what happens is the real problem is that our central nervous system, our brain and spinal cord, is attached at that bone that was just pushed downwards. So now you have this whole line of tension, this whole tug of war of the brain and spinal cord of our central nervous system. Essentially, it's hyperstimulated, and it's a chronic dysfunction. It's maybe an acute injury, but now it's stuck there. It doesn't just come back up on its own accord. And for many people, they have this injury, and the typical traditional rehabilitation realm recommends to have rest and to avoid screen time. And all of that is really good and actually quite essential to optimal healing. But the challenge is that for many people, that's not enough to get to full recovery because we're not addressing what actually happened in the body. We're hoping that the body will heal itself over time. And I think there are many aspects of a concussion injury that the body does heal over time. But that particular part of it is oftentimes the beginning of a long-term problem that can cause much more than headaches and brain fog and visual blurriness and things of that nature, but it can cause upper back pain and stiffness, and it could just be precipitating a lifetime of chronic pain, right, which so many adults have. So in the field of integrative manual therapy, which we specialize in and have developed over many years, there's a lot of material, a lot of treatment techniques to help restore the health of the skull and the spine and the sacrum, the position of it, and also the tension on the brain and spinal cord. And they're gentle techniques. They're not adjustment techniques per se like chiropractic, which is a different field and a wonderful one as well, but separate from what we do. What we're doing is we're trying to meet certain goals. We're wanting to address the lack of mobility by restoring the normal position of the spine. We're wanting to address circulation, making sure that there's optimal circulation. Maybe the person has compression at the base of the skull because of this force and injury. Well, that would mean that they have limited drainage coming out of their head and limited circulation going up to the brain to help support optimal healing where the injury was. And we want to make sure that there's reduced inflammation. So in the realm of integrative manual therapy, we're using our hands and our own brains, with experience to really assess the body and see uniquely for that person, what is the injury for them? And then really coming up with a treatment plan, a program that we need to institute to be able to make some changes. And it can take a couple of sessions, it can take more than that, but it's a gentle approach, and as the person starts to get treatment, they start to feel better. And it's still recommended to stay away from screen time and have rest until your symptoms start to subside. But the difference is when you add in the integrative manual therapy into the recovery program, is a person starts to see improvements. It's accelerated recovery, and they get to a point where they really are back to normal. Where there's some people that really do heal on their own, but maybe that's more of a minor injury as compared to more of the severe concussions. And even for people that have been coming to us, and their families have been utilizing our services for a long time, they know to come here first. Even if it is a minor concussion, we're going to help their healing happen much quicker. It's going to just be elicited much quicker, and they won't have to worry about that long-term dysfunction.